I tell you now the tale of a nobleman, a marquis, but this is a tale not about his acts of nobility, but rather of his senseless cruelty and brutality. An example I would advise no one to follow. Long ago, there lived a young Marquis of Saluzzo whose name was Gualteri. Having no wife or children, he spent all his time hunting, and falconry his vassals concerned that he would end up without an heir, and they without a lord urged him to take a wife and offered to find him a suitable young woman to marry.
What you are asking for is something I never had any intention of doing. For you well know how hard it is to find a woman of suitable character, and you know how wretched is the life of a man who marries the wrong woman. But since you are eager to bind me in the chains of matrimony, I will consent. But I will choose the girl myself so that I will have only myself to blame if things don't turn out well.
Gualteri had admired a poor young shepherd girl from a nearby village, and he decided to take her as his wife. When he told this news to his vassals and friends, they pledged that they would honor this girl as their lady, and they set about making preparations for a grand wedding celebrations. Gualteri invited all his friends, relations, lords, and ladies from the surrounding countryside, and he had beautiful dresses, jewelry, and a crown made for his bride to be. On the day of the wedding, Gualteri mounted his horse and had all his guests do the same.
My lords, the hour is come to fetch my new bride.
He led them down the road to the village. When they arrived at the house of the girl whose name was Griselda, they found her returning from the well hurrying to be in time to go with the other villagers to see the arrival of Gualteri's new bride.
Where is your father, Griselda?
You knew my name? He is in the house, my lord.
So Gualteri went into the humble house with her and said to the Griselda's father, a poor of a shepherd,
I have come to take Griselda as my wife. But first, there are some things I must ask her in your presence. Griselda, will you promise to endeavor always to please me and never to be angry at anything I say or do, but rather to always be obedient?
I would.
Gualteri took her by the hand, led her outside and in front of everyone, had her stripped naked and clothed in one of the new dresses he had made for her, and he placed a crown on her disheveled hair.
My lord, this is the woman I have chosen for my wife. Will you take me as your husband, Griselda?
I will, my lord.
Gualteri set her on a horse and led her to her house where the wedding was celebrated. If Griselda had been beautiful before, she seemed now to become even more lovely and more noble. In time, she proved herself to be obedient to her husband, gracious and kind to her subjects who came to love and admire her. And if they questioned Gualteri's choice, they now thought him the wisest man in the world for who but he could have recognized the nobility of a lady hidden under her peasant's clothing, and soon her virtue and her goodness became known far and wide. Before long, Griselda gave birth to a daughter, and it was then Gualteri decided he wished to test her patience with a series of terrible trials. He began with harsh words, feigning anger and telling Griselda his subjects disapproved of her low birth, especially now that she had borne a child.
My lord, do with me what you think best for your honor and happiness, and I shall be content. For I know I am of low worth, and not worthy of the honors you have bestowed upon me.
It pleased Gualteri to see that his wife's newfound nobility had not made her haughty, but this test was just the beginning. He told Griselda that his subjects disapproved of the daughter she had given birth, and a short while later, he sent one of his servants to deliver a terrible message.
My lady, since I do not wish to die, I must do as my lord has commanded. He has ordered me to take his daughter of yours, and
There, take her now, and do as your lord and mine has ordered you to do. But I beseech you to do not leave her body to be devoured by the beast and the birds, unless that is what he has ordered.
The servant took the child and told Gualteri what Griselda had said, and he was astonished at her fortitude. He had the servant take his daughter to one of his relatives in Bologna, asking her to raise the girl, but never to tell her whose daughter she was. Soon afterward, Griselda became pregnant again, and this time she have gave birth to a son, which delighted Gualteri, but the trial to which he had subjected his wife was not enough to satisfy him, and so called her to him and pretending to be angry.
Lady, my subjects are complaining bitterly that the grandson of a peasant will be their lord after I am gone. I am afraid that if I do not wish to be driven out, I must do what I did before, and then I must leave you and take another wife.
Lord, think not of me, but only of what makes you happy.
A few days later, Gualteri sent for his son in the same way and again pretending to have him killed. He sent him to be raised in Bologna with his sister. Griselda responded with the same stoic expression as before, and Gualteri marveled at this and thought that no other woman could ever have done what she had, but still he was not satisfied. A few years later, he felt it was time to put Griselda's patience to the ultimate test.
I had finally come to realize that taking a shepherd girl as a wife had been an impetuous mistake. I could no longer bear being married to Griselda. So, I am asking for dispensation from the Pope so I can marry someone else.
When Griselda heard of this, she grieved most bitterly, but as the other injuries she had suffered, she was determined to bear this one with the same resolve. Meanwhile, Gualteri had forged documents sent him from Rome that he had received a papal dispensation to remarry. And in a rough peasant dress, Griselda swept the bedrooms, had the halls decorated, and made arrangements for the feasting. On the day of the wedding, she welcomed all the guests to her former home with the grace of a noble lady. Gualteri had his children raised by a relative who had married into the family of the Counts of Panago. His son was now 6 years old and his daughter was now 12 and was beautiful beyond compare. He instructed this relative to bring his children accompanied by a fine retinue to Salusta and to tell no one of their identity, but instead to pretend he was bringing Gualteri, his bride. When the retinue arrived, they were greeted by all the peasants who were eager to see Gualteri's new bride. The girl was received by the ladies of the court and brought to the banquet hall, and there Griselda, dressed in her humble clothes, greeted her with a smile. Then they went to their children who had heard this news in great amazement and took them in their arms. The ladies, most delighted, led Griselda to her old room, dressed her in her finest attire, and ushered her back into the hall as the lady of the house, and there the family and all the court feasted and celebrated for several days, and from that day forth Gualteri honored Griselda to the best of his ability for the rest of their lives. And though many believe Gualteri, in spite of his cruelty, to be a wise man, everyone agreed that the wisest of them all was Griselda.